The planet Varnik was a place of nightmares. Its skies were painted in shades of orange and red, swirling with storms that never seemed to end. The ground was cracked and barren, covered in jagged rocks and strange, glowing plants. It was here that the Krylos, an alien species known for their cruelty and advanced technology, had built their infamous Colosseum, a massive structure made of dark metal and pulsating energy fields. It loomed over the landscape like a beast waiting to devour its prey. Maya Carter woke up in a cold, damp cell. Her head throbbed and her body ached from the journey she didn't remember taking. She blinked several times, trying to adjust to the dim light. Around her, other prisoners lay on the floor or leaned against the walls, their faces pale and hollow. Some whispered quietly, while others stared into space, defeated before the battle even began. Maya tried to sit up, but her arms felt heavy, as if they belonged to someone else. "Where am I?" she asked aloud, though no one answered. One man nearby glanced at her briefly before returning his gaze to the floor. His silence told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't a place where questions mattered. Not anymore. A loud clang echoed through the corridor outside, followed by the sound of footsteps. The door to the cell slid open with a hiss, revealing two towering Krylos guards. Their bodies were sleek and insect-like, with shimmering exoskeletons and elongated limbs. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, casting eerie blue glows across the room. Without speaking, they gestured for the prisoners to stand. Maya hesitated for a moment, then pushed herself to her feet. Her legs wobbled under her weight, but she forced herself to move. The others followed reluctantly, shuffling out of the cell like ghosts. As they were led down the narrow hallway, Maya noticed something odd about the walls. They weren't solid metal, but instead pulsed faintly, as if alive. She reached out instinctively, wanting to touch it, but one of the guards snapped at her with a sharp click of its mandibles. She pulled her hand back quickly, heart racing. They were taken to a large chamber filled with screens and machinery. In the center stood a tall platform, surrounded by smaller pods that emitted a soft green glow. A Krylos overseer approached them, its voice crackling through a translator device strapped to its chest. "You are here because you are weak," it said, its tone devoid of emotion. "But weakness can be entertaining. You will fight in the Colosseum, and those who survive may earn a chance to live." Maya's stomach churned. Fight? Against what? Before she could ask, the group was split apart, each person being directed toward different pods. She stepped into hers hesitantly, feeling a sudden rush of panic. The pod sealed shut around her, and within seconds she was lifted into the air. Bright lights blinded her as the platform rotated, bringing her face to face with thousands of Krylos spectators seated in the stands above. They roared and clicked excitedly, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. The arena below was vast, stretching far beyond what Maya could see. It was filled with strange obstacle spinning blades, pits of bubbling liquid, and towering structures that looked impossible to climb. But the most terrifying sight was the creature standing in the middle. It was enormous, with thick, scaly skin and razor-sharp claws. Its eyes glowed yellow, locking onto Maya as she descended onto the battlefield. Her pod opened, and she stumbled out, landing hard on the uneven ground. The crowd erupted in cheers, urging the monster to attack. Maya scrambled to her feet, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She scanned the area desperately, looking for anything she could use to defend herself. Nearby, she spotted a piece of broken metal lying near the edge of the pit. She sprinted toward it, dodging as the creature lunged at her with incredible speed. Grabbing the shard, Maya turned just in time to block one of its claws. The impact sent shockwaves through her arms, nearly knocking her off balance. She gritted her teeth and swung the makeshift weapon, striking the creature's side. It roared in anger, recoiling slightly, but it wasn't enough to stop it. It charged again, forcing Maya to dive out of the way. She rolled onto her back, gasping for breath. This wasn't going to work. She couldn't keep fighting like this, not without a plan. Her mind raced as she searched for a solution. That's when she noticed something peculiar about the arena. The spinning blades overhead created gusts of wind strong enough to knock over smaller objects. If she timed it right, with renewed determination, Maya lured the creature toward the blades. It pursued her relentlessly, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground beneath her feet. Just as it raised its claw to strike, she ducked low, letting the blade slice through the air above her. The creature wasn't so lucky. The sharp edge caught it squarely in the shoulder, severing one of its arms. It let out a deafening scream. Collapsing to the ground, the crowd went wild, cheering and clicking louder than ever. Maya stood there, trembling, as the platform rose once more to lift her out of the arena. She had survived, but barely. And she knew this was only the beginning. Over the next few days, Maya faced more challenges in the Colosseum. Each battle was harder than the last, pitting her against increasingly dangerous opponents, yet she adapted. She learned to study her surroundings, identifying patterns and weaknesses in both the creatures and the arena itself. She scavenged tools from fallen enemies, fashioning crude weapons and shields to give herself an edge. One day, after defeating a particularly vicious beast, Maya encountered another prisoner named Alex Monroe. He was lean and wiry, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. Unlike many of the others, he didn't seem broken by the experience. Instead, he watched her with curiosity, as if trying to understand how she had managed to stay alive for so long. "You're good," he said simply, leaning against the wall of their shared holding cell. "Better than most." Maya shrugged, though she couldn't hide the pride swelling in her chest. "I've had practice," Alex nodded slowly. "We could help each other, share what we know. Maybe we'd have a better chance of getting out of here." At first, Maya was hesitant. Trusting someone in this place felt like inviting disaster. But as the days passed, she realized Alex had valuable insights. He had been in the Colosseum longer than she had and knew things she didn't like, which creatures were weakest during certain phases of the planet's rotation, or how to disable traps hidden in the arena. Together they formed an uneasy alliance, working together to survive. Despite their growing bond, hope remained elusive. Rumors spread among the prisoners about the impossibility of escape. Some claimed the Krylos monitored every movement, making rebellion futile. Others whispered of a power core buried deep beneath the Colosseum, the source of all its energy. If it could be destroyed, the entire system might collapse. Maya listened intently to these stories, filing away every detail. She didn't dare speak of them openly, not yet. But deep down, a spark of defiance began to grow. If there was even a chance of freedom, she was willing to take it. For now, survival was her priority. But someday, she vowed, she would find a way to turn the tables on her captors, and so, amidst the chaos and bloodshed, Maya Carter continued to fight not just for her life, but for the possibility of something greater. Maya's days in the Colosseum blurred together, each one a relentless cycle of battles, injuries, and fleeting moments of rest. The Krylos spectators grew more demanding with every fight, their cheers louder and more frenzied as they pushed her to her limits, yet Maya continued to adapt. She studied the creatures she faced, learning their movements, weaknesses, and habits. She noticed how some were slower during certain times of the day, likely tied to Varnik's strange rotation. Others had blind spots or predictable attack patterns. Every detail mattered, and Maya's sharp mind turned these observations into strategies that kept her alive. Alex became an invaluable ally during this time. While Maya focused on combat tactics, Alex paid attention to the arena itself. He pointed out hidden mechanisms in the wall's traps that could be triggered by stepping on certain tiles or sensors. Together, they began sharing their knowledge with other prisoners who showed promise. One such prisoner was Elena Torres, a former soldier from Earth who had been captured months before Maya arrived. Elena's strength and discipline made her a natural fighter, but it was her unwavering determination that caught Maya's eye. "Surviving isn't enough," Elena said one night after a particularly brutal match. They sat huddled in the corner of their holding cell, nursing wounds and whispering quietly so the guards wouldn't hear. "We need to do more than just stay alive. We need to fight back." Maya nodded slowly, her thoughts echoing Elena's words. For weeks, she had been considering the same idea. The rumors about the power core beneath the Colosseum lingered in her mind, a seed of hope planted deep within her chest. But taking action meant risking everything, not just her life, but the lives of everyone involved. Still, the thought refused to leave her alone. Another prisoner joined their discussions, a man named Daniel Brooks. Unlike the others, Daniel wasn't much of a fighter. His skills lay in technology and engineering. Before his capture, he had worked repairing spacecraft engines, making him familiar with complex systems. When Maya mentioned the power core, his eyes lit up with interest. "If we can get close enough, I might be able to disable it," Daniel said cautiously. "But it won't be easy. The Krylos don't let anyone near that part of the facility." "Without a reason. That's where we come in," Alex interjected. "We create a distraction big enough to draw the guards away. Then you sneak in and do your thing." The group exchanged glances, weighing the risks. It was a dangerous plan, almost certainly suicidal. But staying in the Colosseum meant eventual death anyway. Slowly, they began to piece together a strategy, each person contributing their strengths to the effort. Over the next several days, Maya and her allies prepared in secret. During battles, they tested new techniques and gathered materials they could use later. Broken weapons and shards of metal became tools for sabotage. Loose wires scavenged from fallen drones were carefully hidden away. At night, when the guards weren't paying attention, they whispered plans and rehearsed roles. One evening, as they sat in the dim light of their cell, Maya shared something she had discovered. Earlier that day, while fighting a creature with thick, armored skin, she had noticed a vent high up on the arena wall. It was small, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it, but it seemed to lead somewhere deeper into the structure. "I think that's our way in," Maya said, tracing a rough map in the dirt with her finger. "If we can reach it during a battle, we might be able to slip through unnoticed." Elena frowned. "It's risky. If the guards catch us, we're dead." "We're already dead if we stay here," Maya replied firmly. "This is our chance to change things, to take control." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. After a long pause, Elena nodded. "All right, let's do it." The opportunity came sooner than expected. The Krylos announced a special event, a grand spectacle featuring the arena's most skilled fighters. Maya, along with Alex and Elena, was chosen to participate. As they were led to the platform that would lower them into the Colosseum, Maya felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was the moment they had been preparing for. When the battle began, chaos erupted. The arena was filled with not one, but 3 massive creatures, each more terrifying than the last. The crowd roared with delight, urging the monsters to attack. Maya and her team fought fiercely, using every trick they had learned to survive. They moved as a unit, covering each other's backs and creating openings for escape. As planned, Maya lured one of the creatures toward the section of the wall where the vent was located. With precise timing, she dodged its attacks, leading it closer and closer to the target. Finally, she spotted the vent opening above her. Summoning all her strength, she leaped onto the creature's back and used its body as a springboard to reach the ledge. The crowd gasped as Maya disappeared into the vent, leaving the battle behind. Inside, the passage was narrow and dark, the air thick with dust and the hum of machinery. She crawled forward quickly, following the faint glow of lights below. Soon she reached a grate that overlooked a vast chamber. In the center stood the power core, a towering structure pulsating with energy. Maya signaled for the others to join her. One by one, they slipped into the vent and made their way to the grate. Below, Krylos technicians bustled around the core, monitoring its functions. Daniel examined the scene carefully, calculating the best approach. "We'll need to cause a distraction," he whispered. "Something loud enough to pull them away." Elena grinned. "Leave that to me." She climbed back into the vent and dropped down into the arena, drawing the attention of the remaining creatures. Her sudden reappearance sent the crowd into a frenzy, giving Daniel the cover he needed to descend into the chamber. With steady hands, he began disabling the core's systems, bypassing security protocols and rerouting power flows. Back in the arena, Maya and Alex worked together to keep the creatures occupied, buying Daniel as much time as possible. The battle was intense, their bodies pushed to the brink of exhaustion. But they held on, driven by the knowledge that their efforts might finally break the cycle of suffering. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The hum of machinery faltered, and the entire Colosseum shook violently. Alarms blared, filling the air with piercing noise. The Krylos spectators panicked, scrambling to evacuate the stands. Guards rushed into the arena, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The power core had been compromised. In the chaos, Maya and her team regrouped. They moved swiftly through the now darkened corridors, avoiding the disoriented Krylos. Forces, the once impenetrable fortress was crumbling around them, its systems failing one by one. As they reached the exit, sunlight streamed through the cracks in the dome, casting golden rays across the desolate landscape of Varnuk. For the first time in what felt like forever, Maya stepped outside the Colosseum. The fresh air hit her face, cool and invigorating. Behind her, the others emerged, their faces etched with relief and disbelief. They had done it, they had escaped, but Maya knew this was only the beginning. The scars of the Colosseum ran deep, and the Krylos still held power over countless worlds. As she gazed out at the horizon, she vowed to continue fighting, not just for herself, but for everyone who had suffered under the Krylos' tyranny. Together they would build something stronger, something better, an empire born from resilience and defiance. And so, amidst the ruins of their captivity, Maya Carter took her first steps toward a future defined not by fear, but by freedom. The escape from the Colosseum was only the first step in a long and difficult journey. Outside, the planet Varnuk stretched endlessly, its harsh landscape unforgiving and barren. The air was thin, filled with strange particles that made breathing painful. The ground cracked underfoot, and jagged rocks jutted out like broken teeth. It was a place where survival itself felt like an impossible task. Maya led the group away from the crumbling structure of the Colosseum, her mind racing with plans. They couldn't stay near the arena. The Krylos would regroup soon, and when they did, they would hunt down the escaped prisoners. But where could they go? There was no shelter in sight, no water or food to sustain them. For now, moving forward was their only option. As they walked, Maya took stock of their situation. Elena carried a makeshift spear crafted from debris scavenged during their escape. Alex had salvaged a piece of metal that could serve as both a weapon and a tool. Daniel clutched a small device he had managed to grab from the power core chamber, muttering about its potential uses. Despite their exhaustion, each person contributed what they could, determined to survive. Hours passed, and the group trudged across the rocky terrain. The sun, or what passed for a sun on Varnuk, hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows over the land. Maya's throat burned with thirst, and her legs ached with every step. Yet she pressed on, refusing to let despair take hold. She reminded herself why they had fought so hard to escape. Giving up now wasn't an option. By nightfall, they reached a cluster of large boulders that offered some protection from the biting winds. Maya called for a halt, and the group collapsed onto the cold ground. Elena volunteered to keep watch while the others rested. As Maya lay there, staring at the alien stars above, she thought about what came next. Escaping the Colosseum was a victory, but it didn't mean freedom. To truly be free, they needed more than just distance. They needed resources and a plan. The next morning, Maya gathered everyone together. "We can't stay here," she said firmly. "This planet is dangerous, and we're exposed. We need to find shelter, water, and food if we want to survive." Daniel nodded. "I've been thinking about the device I grabbed. It might help us locate underground water sources. If we can dig deep enough, we might find something drinkable." Elena added, "And we should look for caves or natural formations that can protect us from the elements. Anything to give us cover until we figure out our next move." With renewed purpose, the group set off once again. They followed Daniel's directions, using the device to scan for signs of water beneath the surface. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon a shallow depression in the ground. Digging carefully, they uncovered damp soil and eventually a trickle of liquid seeping through the cracks. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them alive for now. Over the next few days, the survivors worked tirelessly to establish a temporary camp. They built crude shelters using rocks and scraps of material scavenged from the wreckage of the Colosseum. They learned which plants were safe to eat and which ones were toxic. Slowly, they began to adapt to the harsh conditions of Varnock, but Maya knew this was only a temporary solution. Staying hidden wasn't enough. They needed to fight back against the Krylos not just for themselves, but for all those still trapped in the Colosseum. She shared her thoughts with the others one evening as they sat around a small fire, its flickering light barely holding back the darkness. "We've survived this far," Maya said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "But we can't stop here. The Krylos are still out there, capturing and enslaving innocent people. If we don't do something, they'll keep doing it forever." Elena crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. "You're talking about taking the fight to them. That's not going to be easy." "I know," Maya replied. "But we have something they don't expect, hope, and we have each other. Together we can build something stronger than anything they've faced before." Alex spoke up, his tone cautious but resolute. "If we're going to do this, we'll need more than just the 5 of us. We need numbers, weapons, and a strategy." Daniel nodded in agreement. "And we'll need to learn how to use their technology against them. Their weapons, their ships, everything. If we can reverse engineer what we've taken from them, we can level the playing field." Maya smiled faintly, encouraged by their determination. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll start small, but we won't stop until we've built an army strong enough to take down the Krylos." The group spent the following weeks turning their vision into reality. They explored the surrounding area, searching for abandoned equipment left behind by the Krylos. Daniel worked tirelessly to repair and modify the devices they found, creating tools and weapons that could rival the Krylos' own. Elena trained the others in combat techniques, teaching them how to fight efficiently and effectively. Alex scouted the horizon, keeping watch for any signs of danger. Word of their efforts began to spread. Other escaped prisoners who had fled the Colosseum heard whispers of a group fighting back against the Krylos. Some were skeptical, unwilling to risk their lives after enduring so much pain. But others joined Maya's cause, drawn by the promise of hope and revenge. Among them were members of lesser alien races oppressed by the Krylos, seeking liberation from their tyrannical rule. With each new arrival, Maya's group grew stronger. They formed a community, united by a shared goal, to overthrow the Krylos' empire and free all those enslaved within it. Maya became their leader, not because she demanded it, but because they saw her strength and resolve. She inspired them to believe in a future where they weren't victims, but victors. One day, a scout returned with news that changed everything. A Krylos supply convoy was scheduled to pass near their location, carrying weapons, fuel, and other valuable resources. It was a risky target, heavily guarded and well-armed. But Maya saw it as an opportunity, a chance to strike a blow against their enemies and prove that resistance was possible. She gathered her team and outlined the plan. They would ambush the convoy, using the element of surprise to their advantage. Elena and a small group of fighters would lead the attack, drawing the guards' attention while Daniel and his engineers disabled the vehicles. Maya and Alex would secure the cargo, ensuring they captured as many supplies as possible. The night of the ambush, tension hung thick in the air. Everyone moved silently, their footsteps muffled by the soft dirt. When the convoy appeared on the horizon, Maya gave the signal. Elena and her team sprang into action, firing makeshift weapons and creating chaos. The Krylos guards scrambled to respond, their disciplined ranks breaking under the unexpected assault. Meanwhile, Daniel worked quickly, planting charges on the engines of the vehicles. Explosions rocked the convoy, sending plumes of smoke into the air. Amid the confusion, Maya and Alex loaded crates of weapons and supplies onto a stolen transport vehicle. By the time the Krylos' reinforcements arrived, the rebels were already retreating. Their prize secured, back at the camp, The mood was electric. For the first time, they had struck a real blow against their oppressors. The victory boosted morale and attracted even more recruits to their cause. Maya addressed the growing crowd, her voice ringing with conviction. "This is just the beginning," she declared. "Today we showed the Krylos that we're not afraid. Tomorrow we'll show them that we're unstoppable." Under Maya's leadership, the rebellion continued to grow. They established hidden bases across Varnik, training new fighters and developing advanced weapons. They launched raids on Krylos outposts, freeing prisoners and gathering intelligence. Each success brought them closer to their ultimate goal, an assault on the Krylos homeworld. As the months passed, Maya's dream of building an empire began to take shape. What started as a desperate bid for survival had transformed into a movement. Force capable of challenging the most powerful species in the galaxy. And though the road ahead remained fraught with danger, Maya and her allies faced it with courage and determination. For the first time in years, hope burned brightly in their hearts. They were no longer prisoners or victims. They were warriors, united by a common purpose. And they would not rest until the Krylos Empire fell. The rebellion had grown beyond anything Naya could have imagined when she first escaped the Colosseum. What started as a small group of survivors fighting for their lives had transformed into a powerful force capable of striking fear into the hearts of the Krylos. Bases were scattered across Varnik, hidden in caves and behind rocky outcrops. Fighters trained tirelessly, honing their skills under Elena's watchful eye. Engineers like Daniel worked around the clock, reverse engineering Krylos technology to create weapons that rivaled their oppressors' arsenal. And at the heart of it all was Maya, whose leadership inspired loyalty and courage in everyone who followed her. But Maya knew they couldn't stay on Varnik forever. The planet was harsh, its resources limited, and the Krylos would eventually regroup and come after them with full force. To truly defeat the Krylos, they needed to take the fight to their homeworld, a place known only as Krylos Prime. It was a dangerous plan, one that required precision, stealth, and overwhelming strength. Yet Maya believed it was their only chance to end the tyranny once and for all. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and red, Maya called a meeting with her closest advisors. Elena, Alex, and Daniel gathered around a makeshift table in their main base, maps and schematics spread out before them. Maya stood at the head of the table, her expression serious but determined. "We've hit their supply lines, freed prisoners, and disrupted their operations," she began, her voice steady. "But we haven't dealt them a fatal blow yet. If we want to win this war, we need to strike at their core, their homeworld." Elena frowned, leaning forward. "Krylos Prime is heavily guarded. Getting there won't be easy." "I know," Maya replied. "But we've been preparing for this moment for months. We've built ships from salvaged parts, trained fighters, and stockpiled weapons. Now it's time to use everything we've worked for." Daniel nodded slowly, pointing to a diagram of a Krylos cruiser. "If we can capture one of their larger ships, we can disguise ourselves and slip past their defenses. They'll think we're just another patrol returning home." "And once we're inside?" Alex asked, his tone cautious. "Once we're inside," Maya said, her eyes gleaming with resolve, "we hit their command center. Without leadership, their empire will crumble." The group spent hours refining the plan, discussing every detail and contingency. They knew the risk's failure meant not only their deaths, but the destruction of everything they had built. But they also knew the stakes. If they succeeded, they could free countless species enslaved by the Krylos and dismantle an empire built on cruelty and oppression. The operation began with a daring raid on a Krylos outpost orbiting Varnik. Maya led a team of elite fighters aboard a stolen transport ship. Their mission clear: infiltrate the station and capture a cruiser docked nearby. The attack was swift and brutal, catching the Krylos off guard. Using stolen uniforms and forged identification codes, Maya's team blended in with the chaos, moving through the corridors undetected. When they reached the cruiser, Daniel worked quickly to override its systems, disabling security protocols and locking out any attempts to remotely shut it down. Within minutes, the ship was theirs. As they prepared to depart, Maya gave the order to destroy the outpost, ensuring no alarms could be raised. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as the rebels made their escape, disappearing into the void. For days, they traveled under the guise of a routine patrol, careful to mimic the behavior of Krylos ships. When they finally approached Krylos Prime, Maya felt a mix of excitement and dread. The planet loomed ahead, its surface covered in sprawling cities connected by glowing highways. Towers of shimmering metal pierced the clouds, and massive orbital defense platforms circled the atmosphere. It was a sight both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a testament to the power of the Krylos Empire. As they neared the planet, Maya addressed her crew. "This is it," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Stick to the plan, stay focused, and remember why we're here." The ship passed through the defensive perimeter without incident, its forged credentials holding up under scrutiny. Once inside the atmosphere, Maya ordered the crew to land near the capital city, where the Krylos Emperor resided. The rebels disembarked quietly, blending into the bustling streets filled with alien citizens going about their daily lives. Few noticed the humans and other escaped prisoners moving among them, their faces hidden beneath hoods and masks, splitting into smaller teams. The rebels carried out their assignments. Some sabotaged key infrastructure, cutting off communication networks and disabling power grids. Others infiltrated government buildings, gathering intelligence and planting explosives. Maya led her team directly to the palace, a towering structure at the heart of the city. Its walls shimmered with energy fields and armed guards patrolled the grounds. Getting inside was no easy task. The rebels relied on stealth, using cloaking devices crafted by Daniel to slip past the guards unnoticed. Once inside, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors guided by blueprints stolen during earlier raids. Finally, they reached the throne room, where the Krylos Emperor awaited. The Emperor was a towering figure, his exoskeleton gleaming with iridescent colors. His presence radiated authority, and his sharp mandibles clicked ominously as he regarded the intruders. Surrounding him were elite warriors, their weapons charged and ready. Maya stepped forward, her weapon raised. "Your reign ends today," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. The Emperor let out a low growl, his translator crackling to life. "You dare challenge me?" "You're nothing but vermin." "Maybe," Maya shot back. "But even vermin can bring down an empire." With that, the battle erupted. The rebels fought fiercely, their training and determination outweighing the Krylos' superior numbers. Elena moved like a whirlwind, her spear slicing through enemies with deadly precision. Alex provided cover fire, keeping the warriors at bay while Maya advanced toward the Emperor. The final confrontation was intense. The Emperor was stronger and faster than any creature Maya had faced before, his claws swiping with lethal accuracy. But Maya had learned from every battle, adapting and surviving against impossible odds. She dodged his attacks, searching for an opening. When it came, she didn't hesitate. With a fierce cry, she drove her weapon into the Emperor's chest, piercing his exoskeleton. The Emperor staggered, his body collapsing to the ground with a thunderous crash. For a moment there was silence. Then cheers erupted from the rebels as they realized what they had accomplished. The Krylos Emperor was dead. With their leader gone, the Krylos Empire began to collapse. Communication networks failed, and military forces turned on each other in confusion. Across the galaxy, enslaved species rose up, seizing the opportunity to overthrow their oppressors. Maya's rebellion became a symbol of hope, inspiring others to join the fight for freedom. In the aftermath, Maya stood atop the palace steps, gazing out at the city below. Fires burned in the distance, remnants of the battles that had raged throughout the night. But amidst the destruction, she saw signs of renewal. Groups of aliens worked together to rebuild, their differences set aside in pursuit of a better future. Elena approached, her face smudged with soot, but her expression triumphant. "What happens now?" she asked. Maya smiled faintly. "Now we build something new, something better. An empire based on equality and cooperation, not fear and domination." Over the following weeks, Maya and her allies established a coalition. government, inviting representatives from various species to participate. They drafted laws ensuring fair treatment and equal rights for all, regardless of race or origin. Resources were shared and efforts were made to heal the scars left by centuries of oppression. Maya's leadership earned her respect and admiration from across the galaxy. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a visionary, a builder of empires. Under her guidance, the coalition flourished, becoming a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples everywhere. And though the memory of the Colosseum still haunted her dreams, Maya found solace in knowing that her sacrifices and those of her friends had paved the way for a brighter future. Together, they had proven that even in the darkest of times, hope could light the path to victory. Months had passed since the fall of Krylos Prime, and the galaxy was still adjusting to the monumental shift in power. The Krylos Empire, once feared and unchallenged, was now a shadow of its former self. Its leaders were gone, its military fractured, and its enslaved populations freed. In their place stood Mayal Carter's coalition, a new government born from resistance and resilience. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. For the first time in generations, countless species across the galaxy dared to dream of peace. Maya worked tirelessly to ensure the coalition succeeded. Every day brought new challenges, disputes between alien factions, shortages of resources, and the lingering threat of rogue Krylos loyalists determined to restore their old ways. Yet she faced each problem with determination, guided by the belief that cooperation and fairness could overcome even the deepest divides. Her advisors, Elena, Alex, and Daniel, remained by her side, their roles evolving as the coalition grew. Elena became the head of security, overseeing efforts to maintain order and protect the fragile alliance. Alex took charge of diplomacy, traveling to distant worlds to negotiate treaties and alliances. Daniel focused on innovation, using his engineering skills to improve technology and infrastructure for the benefit of all. Together, they formed a team that complemented Maya's leadership, ensuring no single issue overwhelmed them. Despite their progress, Maya often found herself reflecting on the cost of their victory. So many lives had been lost along the way, not just in the rebellion, but in the years of suffering under the Krylos rule. Friends like Alex Monroe had sacrificed everything so others could live free. Maya carried those memories with her, letting them fuel her resolve to build something worthy of their sacrifices. One evening, as the Coalition's council convened in the newly constructed Capitol building, a messenger arrived with urgent news. A group of rogue Krylos warships had been spotted near the edge of the galaxy, rallying support from remnants of the old empire. Their leader, a general named Zinkra, had declared himself the rightful heir to the throne and vowed to reclaim what he called the stolen legacy of the Krylos. The council erupted into debate, voices rising as members argued over how to respond. Some advocated for immediate military action, while others urged caution, warning against reigniting the war. Maya listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When the room finally fell silent, she stood, drawing everyone's attention. "We cannot ignore this threat," she said firmly. "Zinkra seeks to undo everything we've fought for, but we won't let him. We will defend our freedom not just for ourselves, but for every being who has suffered under the Krylos." Her words inspired confidence, and the council quickly agreed on a plan. They would send a fleet to intercept Zinkra's forces before they could gather enough strength to launch an attack. Maya volunteered to lead the mission personally, knowing her presence would rally the troops and demonstrate their unity. The journey to the edge of the galaxy was long and tense. Rebel ships, retrofitted with advanced weaponry thanks to Daniel's ingenuity, formed a formidable armada. Pilots and engineers worked around the clock to prepare for battle, while Maya addressed the crew, reminding them of why they were fighting. "This isn't just about stopping Zinkra," she told them. "It's about proving that we are stronger together than any tyrant or empire." When they reached the designated coordinates, the sight before them was daunting. Zinkra's fleet was larger than expected, its ships bristling with weapons and shields. The rebel forces were outnumbered, but they had one advantage. Surprise? Using cloaking devices developed by Daniel, They slipped past the outer defenses and positioned themselves strategically. The battle began with a deafening roar as energy blasts lit up the void of space. Rebel fighters darted between enemy ships, their movements precise and coordinated. Maya commanded from the flagship, her voice calm but commanding as she directed the assault. "Focus on their engines," she ordered. "Disable their mobility, and we'll have the upper hand." Elena led a squadron of elite pilots, weaving through the chaos with unmatched skill. Her ship unleashed a barrage of missiles, crippling several enemy vessels in quick succession. Meanwhile, Alex coordinated communications, ensuring every unit stayed connected and informed. Daniel monitored the flagship systems, making real-time adjustments to keep them operational despite heavy fire. As the battle raged, Maya noticed something unusual, a small, heavily guarded cruiser breaking away from the main fleet. It matched the description of Zinkra's command ship. Without hesitation, she ordered her flagship to pursue it, leaving the rest of the fleet to continue engaging the enemy. The chase was intense, both ships exchanging fire as they maneuvered through asteroid fields and debris. Inside the flagship, alarms blared as shields faltered under repeated hits. But Maya refused to back down. "We're not letting him escape," she said through gritted teeth. Finally, they caught up to Zinkra's ship, disabling its engines with a well-placed shot. Maya donned her combat gear and led a boarding party onto the crippled vessel. The corridors were dark and smoky, littered with the bodies of fallen Krylo soldiers. The air smelled of burning metal and ozone, but Maya pressed forward, her weapon raised. They found Zinkra in the command center, surrounded by a handful of loyal guards. He was larger than most Krylos, his exoskeleton adorned with golden markings that signified his rank. His eyes glowed with rage as he turned to face the intruders. "So, the human leader comes to finish what she started," Zinkra growled, his translator crackling. "You think you can destroy us? You are nothing but insects." "Maybe," Maya replied, stepping closer. "But even insects can bring down giants." With a fierce cry, Zinkra lunged at her, his claws slicing through the air. Maya dodged, countering with a swift strike to his midsection. The fight was brutal, each blow reverberating through the chamber. Zinkra's size and strength gave him an advantage, but Maya's agility and experience kept her alive. She studied his movements, waiting for an opening. When it came, she seized the moment. With a powerful thrust, she drove her weapon into Zinkra's chest, piercing his exoskeleton. He staggered, collapsing to the ground with a final guttural roar. As his body went still, the room fell silent. Back aboard the flagship, Mayo received confirmation that the rebel fleet had secured victory. Zinkra's forces had surrendered, their morale shattered without their leader. Cheers erupted throughout the ships as the rebels celebrated their triumph. Maya allowed herself a brief moment of relief, leaning against the wall as exhaustion washed over her. When they returned to the Coalition's capital, they were greeted as heroes. Crowds lined the streets, waving banners and chanting Maya's name. She walked among them, humbled by their gratitude but mindful of the work still ahead. The galaxy was free, but rebuilding would take time. In the months that followed, Maya continued to lead the Coalition, guiding it towards stability and prosperity. She established trade agreements, promoted cultural exchange, and invested in education and healthcare for all species. Under her leadership, the Coalition became a shining example of what could be achieved when people worked together. Years later, Maya stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling city below. The scars of war had faded, replaced by vibrant communities, thriving in harmony. She thought of Alex, whose sacrifice had paved the way for this future, and of Elena and Daniel, who had stood by her side through every challenge. Though they were older now, their bond remained unbreakable. As she gazed at the stars above, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The road had been long and difficult, but they had succeeded. They had built something greater than themselves. An empire rooted in hope, courage, and unity. And though the galaxy would always face new challenges, Maya knew they were ready to meet them. For the first time in her life, Maya Carter felt truly at peace.